And now, a workshop of the McAllen City Commission. All workshops are open to the public in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. These workshops allow for detailed staff presentations.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Today is the workshop for the McAllen Board of Commissioners for Monday, February 13th, 2023. Our Mayor Villalobos is out of town and sends his regrets that he cannot be here, so I stand in his place today. Mr. City Manager, I call this workshop to order. Item number 1, present questions to staff regarding today's agenda. Any questions for any of the city commissioners? Okay, if not, Mr. City Manager, item number 2.
Item number 2 is a request from the commission to give a report on our homeless status situation here in town. Got a few of the staff members here.
Good afternoon.
Yes. I don't hear it.
Okay, good afternoon. The Code and Health Enforcement Department, together with the Grounds Department, have put together a few slides just to kind of go over what our involvement is with the homeless activity in the city of McAllen. So this slide here just talks about the 3 types of homelessness. There's chronic, transitional, and episodic, which you have in your packet. And obviously they're different types and they have different needs. And then the next one is the case information that we have that has been built from code enforcement cases that have been responded to over the last 3 years, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Building inspections, and then there's some housing cases and enforcement cases. You will note, obviously, in 2020, we did have some interruption due to COVID information. We also, these are the most common reported cases that allow us to observe when there is some homelessness going on. It is trespassing on private property. There have been approximately 40 cases involving homeless people and entering private properties, including residential and commercial. The other type is accumulation of trash. Between 2020 and 2022, there's been about 47 cases involving homeless people contributing to alley accumulation and on private property, both commercial and residential. This is a pinpoint of the areas of the cases that code enforcement has noted in the past 3 years, with the different years noted by different colors, dots. These are some of the pictures that we have from some of the cases that we've been called on to, both in residential and commercial areas. A couple more pictures. A little bit closer shot of the activity. You can see a lot of it obviously is in the older areas of town, downtown. What generally happens is that work orders are created for Public Works Department to assist with the cleanups of these areas, because we don't typically have a property owner that we hold responsible for it unless they don't choose to work with us by posting a no trespassing sign and so forth. Salvation Army or Catholic Charities are also notified to help the people that are identified as being needy individuals, and trespassing cases are referred to both to the McAllen Police Department. Accumulation of trash and rubbish cases are created for the property owners when we can't get, when it is on private property. This is the point in time study. I'll let Yvette talk a little bit about that. The Grants Department is involved in that every year.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So our point in time study is actually an annual count. Is an annual count of sheltered and unsheltered individuals experiencing homelessness, and we do it on a single night in January because we do it in conjunction with the Texas Homeless Network. We select the last Thursday in January to do it, so we held our last one on the 26th of this year. Sheltered persons obviously include those who, individuals and families who are either in emergency shelters, transitional housing, safe havens, including hotels that are paid for, often by other nonprofit organizations. The reason that we do this is so that at the federal level, we can report to Congress how we are addressing homelessness. So all of our numbers are aggregated on a national level and then provided to Congress at that point. But on a local level, it gives us the opportunity to look at what we need to do to address local needs, basically where to put our financial resources, to measure any progress that we have in increasing or decreasing homelessness within our area, to identify strengths and gaps in our service providers, and to help them address those gaps. We also look at subpopulations, including veterans, chronically homeless individuals, individuals that are here as single individuals, those with families, and often those who are single mothers with children. And lastly, we use it to identify triggers to look at frequency and length of homeless episodes. So oftentimes we've been seeing that drug use, domestic violence, and mental health concerns have been triggers for these homeless individuals in which that's been their assessment of the reason that they're homeless. So we provided some county and citywide data on the next slide just to indicate that in the past 3 years, we've looked at about 80% of the homeless cases that we identified in Hidalgo County in 2020 were here in McAllen. In 2021, because of COVID, we just did a sheltered count, and that was 36, and so all of them were from McAllen because that's where we have both shelters in Hidalgo County. In 2022, we represented about 60% of the cases identified. And then just to let you know that our preliminary numbers show that Hidalgo County had 366 individuals who experienced homelessness on that January 9th, and of which McAllen was about 106. So we still represent at least a third of the cases that they've identified. So again, just this data helps us to look at where we put our fiscal resources, and most of the time in order to address homelessness, we do rental assistance, we do deposits, security deposits, so that individuals can obtain and maintain adequate housing. And that's really all for me.
You had mentioned about domestic violence. Are the persons who are housed through Mujeres Unidas counted in this tabulation?
Yes.
They are.
Yes, they are.
Can you give me an idea? The point in time study, a single night, how many people does that take? Especially on the county level, they can't do that in a single night, can they?
So we do it on a single night, and it entails us working with police departments, with volunteers, with individuals, and then also identifying areas in which homeless tend to congregate. So obviously we have a lot of individuals that do day laborers, and so we go to places in which they are in mass in order to do those congregations. But we do work with the agencies that provide services like Catholic Charities, Salvation Army, Women Together, in order to identify their counts, as well as then just go out onto the streets and do a count, do an enumeration.
Does every city do it individually as a city?
So the requirement is that HUD grantees participate. So Hidalgo County is a HUD grantee, so they do theirs a little differently than the way we do it at the city level, because obviously we have a little bit more control of where we can go and what areas have been isolated. But yes, essentially Hidalgo County does do a method in which they create their own mechanism to make those counts. And again, part of it is helping, the police department's helping identify those individuals.
What's the process? You mentioned, the police department is involved, I think, from a daily basis. They're the ones that are maybe interacting the most with homeless. What's their procedure? And I know it's probably not something that y'all are involved in, but from a daily basis, that's the police officers are interacting with them. And so what's their procedure? Do they refer them to Salvation Army, and or what can they do?
So when they can, most definitely they work with the social workers, either at Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, Women Together, depending on the scenario in which they've encountered them. And then from there, they will refer them appropriately. So oftentimes we will get calls to help them process invoicing related to providing shelter. So anything from the deposits to the first month's rent, to letting us know that this incident has occurred. I really couldn't speak about how exactly Hidalgo County does theirs. They've been in a bit of transition, so this year actually our staff helped them develop their process.
Is there, I know this is a count, right, but and I saw this chart where you kind of categorize the different types of needs or types of homelessness. Do most of the shelters have social workers?
Yes, so
Or
they
case
have
manager?
some type of individual who helps with the case management, yes.
Do you know if they follow up with the same individuals throughout the year to see?
So by providing services, they normally go into what's called the Homeless Management Information System, in which we all have a participating license for, so that we try not to double up any type of assistance. So if they've been assisted by, say, Salvation Army, they don't get assistance by Catholic Charities for the same time frame and things like that. So we do utilize a data system in order to keep count of them as well. Not sure if I answered your question.
No, you
but-
did. In terms of the objective, when the social workers get involved or with these agencies that provide, I know they obviously provide very short-term solutions, but are they also looking at long-term solutions where maybe they need a mental illness referral, getting back on their meds, or maybe with job assistance, getting them a coat and tie? I mean,
So most of the programs that we fund with CDBG are short-term assistance, usually meaning that we provide assistance for 3 months. The only transitional housing is Women Together in Hidalgo County, and they can go up to 24 months. And basically, they do that, help them with case management, help them develop a budget, all the finite things that have to do with living independently. But there is no transitional housing in Hidalgo County, and that's always been an issue. Because we only do these 30 to 45 night stays at Salvation Army, and then they are released because they can no longer stay there under the emergency shelter criteria. And so that has always been an issue, but the problem is we have not seen anyone come with a project that has allowed us to build or construct any type of transitional housing for the general population.
of the 3 categories, which is the population that has the highest number under that category?
So a lot of times we see transitional individuals, so either those that are moving through going north for work, and we actually do have some winter residents who come down here because of our more gentle winters who are homeless. So we do see that numbers do fluctuate. We do know that our homeless population actually increases over the summer because individuals have higher electric bills, and so they may or may not be able to stay in their homes. But HUD requires us to count in January. So we have very little data to show the influx that we get during the summer months.
If we had that data, could we petition for additional services from the federal government, or?
I'm not sure that would be how it works. Normally, we are given a formula allocation based on the numbers that they compute at the federal level.
And if you don't use their formula, it just doesn't work.
Basically, that's it. That's how they award us
I noticed
dollars.
real quick that between 2020 and 2022, we jumped 30% on the unsheltered homeless. Do we know why? What triggered that?
So sometimes the unshelters do include individuals who are here illegally, and so because we do an enumeration, obviously if there is a sense that there could be dangerous, then we actually do a hashtag marking of individuals. So it may just be that we didn't get to count, or we didn't get in-depth data on these individuals. So, but yes, we have seen that there has been an increase. Particularly as it relates to COVID, because just COVID in general had people with loss of incomes, loss of jobs, delayed payments and things, and so it was causing a bit of homelessness despite the fact that we weren't enforcing eviction notices.
That's what I thought, but I needed to.
What's the rule on panhandling, asking for money on, are we still asking them to, are they able to do that on a right-of-way, or what's
No,
the?
that's where the PD enforces, is when they're in the right of way and they're seen by an officer or reported, we get them out of the right of way.
Okay.
And at least in terms of the length of time we've done the PITs, there's been no governmental organizations, churches, to either lead or approach the city about doing transitional housing?
Not with an active participation for transitional housing, no.
Oh, they're more passive, they want the city to lead it?
They would like us to lead it, definitely, because of basically the insurance requirements and cost of construction and maintenance on these facilities. So we don't necessarily have that. We do have some homeless vouchers that are available through like the Housing Authority and through different organizations that make it funding. The BASH for Veterans Assistance has some other housing opportunities, but we just use the resources that we get from the city and essentially from HUD, which includes, CDBG allocations.
So Salvation Army and maybe Catholic Charities, so those are more short-term?
So the stay at Salvation Army is 30 to 45 days, and then they can be given some additional funds to provide rental assistance for that family or those individuals.
So how would you define transitional housing?
So transitional housing tends to be 18 to 24 months, and it includes some case management so that they then are able to go to permanent housing, where they could essentially live independently.
I didn't realize it was that long, 18 to 24 months. And from the data that we gather, is there something, a recommendation from us, or I don't know who it's the commissioners that asked for the information, but
I asked for the information just because I'd noticed an increase in homelessness, and I think the data indicates something to that effect. So I was just wondering where we were going with it, if there was any additional services we could provide or enforcement that we can do. But
I will mention that we did look at some COVID funding that we got and partnering with perhaps the McAllen Housing Authority or Affordable Homes. However, we've not been able to identify a property that was suitable for it that would not break the bank.
Okay.
Always open to long-term solutions, but at the current time, we don't have any.
Sounds good. That'd be a good, maybe medium-term kind of option to look into.
all right. Any other questions from the board? If not, thank you so much, ladies, for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item.
Next item, I want to discuss what we charge for certain reviews for developers and maybe make a recommended change.
Afternoon, Commissioners. So like Roy mentioned, I'm here to talk about minor reviews and the proposal that we have to start charging some fees for them. Without getting too much into the weeds, a Mylar is that final physical legal document that gets recorded with the county clerk. This literally means that the subdivision has been recorded, right? We take that document. As you can see, well, maybe not. There you go.
Close, Edgar.
I was like, yeah. So, as you will see, as you see now, there is a lot of information there, right? There's everything from obviously the number and dimensions of the lots, setbacks, easements, any restrictions, detention requirements, etc. So, due to the nature of this document, a deliberate review is required, and that is what staff does. So, looking very quickly at the development process in general, once a new subdivision is submitted, due to state law, we have 30 days to approve with conditions, or deny. So really what staff is doing at that point is just giving a quick overview of, does the subdivision generally meet subdivision requirements? Are all the lots fronting the street? Are the widths okay? Are they accounting for detention, whether it needs to be decreased or increased as the case may be? And so we take it to P&Z, it gets approved. Once a subdivision has received MPU approval, an approved detention plan, and shown compliance with all ordinances and requirements, or they got variances through City Commission, then we take them for final plat review. Once that has been received, they start working on the Mylar, which again is that plastic kind of paper document that we get. We route signatures for it, and then take it to record. This is a quick snapshot of the different departments that review preliminary and final plat submittals. It's really meant to illustrate the city resources that go into reviewing subdivisions. 6 different departments with about a dozen or so staff members that review all subdivisions. The Mylar, on the other hand, is reviewed by 3 departments, MPU, engineering, and planning. Though it is fewer personnel, obviously that doesn't mean that there's less work involved in reviewing it. So with that in mind, and looking at those resources that are devoted by the city, we conducted a review of how other municipalities deal with their fee structures. We saw that all municipalities charge a separate Mylar review fee, but more importantly, they charge fees on repeat reviews, right? So you pay one fee, if you got to do it again, they'll charge you another fee. So when you look at that sliding fee scale that most cities use, you'll notice that McAllen is really a great value for subdivisions. You can get your subdivision approved for $300, regardless of the acreage, the lots, the complexity, you're good to go. I want to be clear that the Mylar review fee that's reflected there on the bottom right-hand section, that's the proposal. That is not what we charge. We currently do not charge anything for a Mylar review. So that brings us to the discussion at hand. You can see that there's considerable staff time devoted to reviewing subdivisions at all stages, multiple departments, multiple staff. Unfortunately, what we've seen is city staff has been tasked with doing quality control by the engineering firms, where we keep seeing these Mylars 3, 4, 5, 6 times with very few, if any, changes are made. Last year we got a Mylar where the only thing that changed was the date that it was prepared on. But of course, staff had to go through all of it to see that. And I mean, that is a lot of staff resources that could be going to somewhere else. Obviously, reiterative reviews take time away from other subdivisions, but the reverse is when we conduct fewer reviews, that gives us time to do other stuff, right? Other Mylars, other subdivisions, your walk-in clients, your pre-development meetings. So with this in mind, we would like to implement a $250 Mylar review fee. Again, right now we're not charging anything. And this is in an effort to reduce submittals that aren't quality. The proposal is to have one courtesy review, and then each one after that will be $250. Even with the fee, if the engineers do their part, give us a quality review, you'll still be able to finish a subdivision in McAllen for $300. With that first review, if it's good to go, we'll take it to record. You did it with $300. And to be clear, our goal is not to make this into a money-making venture. My goal is to incentivize good quality submittals. Right? We want engineers to be able to give us good products, because at the end of the day, the faster we get something to record, the faster that it gets to development, and developers can start selling lots, can start getting building permits, and start getting that tax revenues that as city we want, right? So that is my proposal. Questions, concerns, what have you?
So who's responsible for preparing the Mylar, or the instrument that's going to?
The project engineer.
Okay. Yes, sir. So what triggers or what event will require more than just one Mylar review? In your experience, what are you seeing?
If most of the times it's information that is missing. Once you get to, we was talking about it with Eduardo actually, once you get to a final plat approval with P&Z, 90% of the information is already there. You as a project engineer should have that. You should be able to quickly copy and paste, for lack of a better term, and start really, almost a complete good quality submittal. That doesn't happen. I mean, we've seen, different cities named there. We've seen mayors that have not been mayors for a while there. And I get it, right? There's CAD technicians do the work, and then the project engineer seals it. We get that, right? But there should be some quality control before we see it.
And because,
that is,
there's no charge,
there's no incentive.
They're not reviewing it.
Correct. We are the ones who review it.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So your suggestion is $250 from the first Mylar that comes to.
The first Mylar will be courtesy, free, and then after that, if you do any changes, we'll start charging you.
I have no problem.
I think that.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah,
Time is money.
I think it's a good idea.
I agree.
And I think you should start planning for increasing the overall fees.
The conversation we can have.
Okay.
We should.
No, we don't. We wanted to get it right the first time. We don't have time. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you.
The next item is discussion on fireworks ordinance, something that came up here recently, and we definitely saw a difference between what the ordinance says to do versus what we have been doing. So there's a chance that we can change the ordinance, depending on how you feel about it, and then we can start enforcing it consistently. That has not been our friend.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As our city manager mentioned, we have a couple of items to discuss regarding the fireworks ordinance. And to be more specific, we're going to be talking about public displays and the related fee with public displays. So if I can say briefly before we get into all the information, we've had issued permits for public displays, and I'm talking about weddings, other kind of festivals, private events, basically, at a cost of $50 for the fee. So with that in mind, to give you some context about the possible conflict that we may have, some of the background here, all of this started when a few years ago we issued some nuisance abatements agreements for warehouses and fireworks stands. That is separate and apart from your public displays. However, that is all covered under the same article. So the last one expired last year on August 14 of 2022, the last abatement that we had. With that in mind, when we get into the actual Code of Ordinance, Article 4, which covers fireworks, Division 1 is what covers all the specifics about what it is that is required to have a safe stand or public display, covers all the manufacture and sales, discharge, etc. That particular section of the code was last amended on July 9th of 2018. Moving forward, under that section, one of the key elements here is that when it comes to the use of pyrotechnics, it is allowed in connection with city-sponsored fireworks displays and celebrations of a recognized holiday such as 4th of July or New Year's Eve, or New Year's, I'm sorry. Now, when we talk about the public displays, the weddings, the festivals, etc., that is covered under Section 2 of the same article. Now, that one was last amended on August 12th of 2013. Part of the conflict here, as I mentioned a minute ago, we've been charging $50 for those. However, the ordinance says that the fee should be $500. And the reason why the fee should be $500 is because part of the requirements is that the site needs to be deemed safe by the fire marshal. And another one of those requirements is that a fire truck, a fire crew should be out there during the discharge of the fireworks to make sure that everything is safe in the process. That's where the $500 fee comes in. Now, somewhere down the line in 2018, there was a change. This is a few fire marshals back. There was a change on the fee schedule for storage of fireworks, warehouses, and stands. In that particular change in 2018, we talked about that a warehouse being a large facility would be $500, and a typical fireworks stand would be $50. Somewhere down the line, that translated into being the fee for displays. So with those items in mind, and I'm sorry, I missed here. The next slide was basically going to talk about the topics of discussions are, do we want to allow a little bit more flexibility for displays, private displays like weddings? Because these events right now, if we are to follow the ordinance as it is, then those should not be allowed. Those should not be permitted unless they are a city-sponsored event, right, in relation to a city-sponsored event. So that's part of the conflict. The fire department doesn't have an issue issuing those permits as long as they comply with all the safety parameters prescribed. But right now, the ordinance is very restrictive. So those are the two items to discuss. Do we want to allow private public displays like weddings and so on? And what do we want to do about the fee? Do we want to do what the ordinance says, $500? Or do we want to consider a different amount?
What do you consider fireworks?
Fireworks, it's anything that produces the flame, the certain amount of heat. Now, there are some fireworks that are considered to be safer, that do not, they're not as dangerous as, conventional fireworks. But basically, anything, any sparkler, anything that will produce light, anything that will be have self-propulsion as well, going up in the air, all of those will fall under that category.
Okay, so there are some restaurants that, they have weddings or they have birthdays or whatever, and they have a different type of fire, little sprinkler, whatever, candles, sprinklers, whatever. Those you're not considering in this?
So from time to time, those are a concern, but those fall more into the category of what they're doing inside a particular building.
Right.
What we're focusing more right now is an actual, like when we have our 4th of July events, or when we have weddings that have large
So-
displays
so
by
you're talking
professional
about-
pyrotechnics.
You're talking about outdoor, not indoor?
Correctly. Anything
I
that.
just don't want to touch the indoor one.
Correct. No, this is anything that requires licensed pyrotechnics.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah. I mean, my stand's pretty clear. I think we should enforce it. I don't think fireworks within city limits are ever a necessity. And I personally think we should be clear on that. Weddings, events that are private events don't need them, they want them. City-sponsored events, 4th of July and New Year's, we clearly advertise, and it's, to some extent, dates that the public can expect to hear or see fireworks, prepare for it. I think, obviously I'm concerned a lot about the animals and the disruption it causes, and we can't necessarily advertise every time a private event gets a firework permit, right? Or send out notices of any kind. And there have been the human issue as well. People bring up veterans or PTSD or the noise disturbance. So I personally don't think that we need them or need to allow them or charge a fee or make exceptions for private events. I just
Kind of on the opposite side of that, I think I'm in favor of private events being able to have a permit. As we, a couple of weeks ago, allowed at the country club for a wedding, in certain instances, I wouldn't think that an event center like one that's close to residents and such would be appropriate, but in an area where it isn't, I'd be in favor of it. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but also on the fee end, 500 sounds a little excessive, but 50 sounds a little too little, and so that's kind of where I'm thinking.
Give us that example. I mean, that's the latest one that we had, where we had a wedding at the country club. What was happening specifically? What were they going to do?
They had a professional licensed technician go out there and set up all the the large fireworks that you see, similar to what we get at 4th of July. Those are fireworks that you can see from a large distance. That's basically the setup. They have to have a certain radius, established as the safe area for fallout and stuff like that. I mean, technically it is a big deal. You need to have a licensed pyrotechnic taking care of that.
And the marshal reviews that plan and the radius and the whole thing?
That is correct. We have a fire inspector that will go out there and review the licenses of the pyrotechnic technician and making sure that the location where they want to launch is safe, that the fallout area is designated, that there are not going to be any concerns. And so from that angle, as long as everything falls within the safety parameters, we don't have any issue conducting them. And of course, the day of launch, that's when we do send a crew to be out there during the actual launch, and that's where the additional fee comes in.
They'll launch like at midnight. We have to have city fire
resources
at site, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Taken away from maybe their station or possibly more distance from a call, something, right?
That is correct. And on-duty
For a
crew,
specific private event. So I don't think 500 is not appropriate, personally, if that's the direction the rest of the commission wants to move into. Say, my personal opinion is no fireworks in city limits. We're beginning to be more and more of an urban city, more and more dense, right? And how many venues can really allow? The country club and maybe a private event at Quinta, I guess, has some space.
The only problem that I see, and I agree with both of you, but this is my take. I saw that fireworks at the country club. I had front row seeing it. It was spectacular. I'll tell you that far. But then, when is going to be enough? Because if people have the money to do those kind of things, it might be every single week, or maybe 2 or 3 times a week kind of thing. That concerns me a little bit because I agree with Sebi on that one. The animals around, and it's very dense. The density of the homes around those areas are big. So, and I know there's a lot of pet owners in that subdivisions. So that might be disturbing for those animals as well. So it's gonna be, but also, I mean.
I think we can write the ordinance in such a way that it's cost prohibitive for just a normal event. I mean, it'd have to be something spectacular, like probably what you saw a couple of weeks ago. Not very many events are going to be like that.
We have
Do we know how many did it last year?
How many?
Or in 12 months?
I don't have an exact number right now.
Yeah, sure.
City-sponsored events are very different, and we advertise it clearly, and we do them on a different type of ground surrounded by commercial. Palms Crossing, never has not a lot of residential area nearby, right, to Omar's point. But
The chief says about 5 or 6 a year.
5 or 6 a year. The New Year's fireworks do cause a lot of disruption in the central neighborhoods for the pets. A lot of animals get loose. People keep their dogs in the backyards. It's not easy to manage, right?
This is 5 or 6 a year right now because the ordinance says that we should not have those. But once we open the can, that's going to increase by a lot. That's my fear in a way, that it might increase.
Maybe that $500 fee is pretty good.
Well, all five of those events, fireworks weren't necessary either, right? And I'm sure the events were very nice as well. It was an addition
And it's very nice.
or
yes,
supplementary
it's
to
very
the
nice
event.
on a lot of events.
It's very nice. I think they're very nice.
But it's very disruptive as well. So we have to try to find a common ground because it's going to be.
Maybe you can limit the duration. Maybe it could be, you can limit the duration. Maybe it could be a 2 to 5 minute display instead of, the displays that we do are 10 minutes or longer, and that's disruptive.
30
a private event is going to be 5 minutes. That's they're not going to spend $25,000.
I personally got a lot of feedback that our 4th of July fireworks was not as long as in the past, and we need to work on it. But that's a one-time event, a year, and people expect it. This is a workshop only, and I didn't realize that there was that call for private fireworks scenario. But I'm with Pepe. If we open it up, then there'll be more. And I don't know if that's appropriate. There is this community, as all communities right now, is very pet friendly, and that would not be pet friendly.
Mr. City Attorney, as I'm reading the section 50-112, is the application for a qualified professional pyrotechnic limited to using fireworks in celebration of recognized holidays or within 10 days thereof? Is that how I'm supposed to read that? So these permits that have been issued have been outside?
Some have been outside. That is.
So I'd like to know why that was. This makes it pretty clear that you're supposed to follow the ordinance.
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
Why were they granted?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question because that's a practice from several years ago. And so that's part of the reason why we're here. And because of the abatements that were issued for the storage of, the warehouses and the fireworks stands, and we have a good stand of, we're going to follow the ordinance. Well, we're following the ordinance on that aspect. We also need to follow the ordinance on that aspect, but now we have that conflict of the previous practice.
Well, shame on us for granting those permits because they shouldn't have been granted to begin with. That's just the prosecutor in me, but that's what the law is. That's the ordinance, right?
If you make it, I'm just thinking right now, I haven't studied it, but out loud, but if you make it easier, they'll make it a business out of this.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So you'll create more.
I would add to limit to at most one permit every year at most. And as far as the fee, I'll put a $2,000 fee on that. The point to me, I follow Commissioner Sevi and partially Commissioner Omar. We want to discourage this. If you want to and you have the wherewithal to form this kind of fireworks display, by all means. But if you're going to start using city services where we're going to have a unit or an engine out there to supervise, that's costing all the citizens of McAllen to do that one display, a private display.
Yeah, and $500 isn't cutting it.
Right, and I think the statute's right. I mean, within 10 days of a federally recognized holiday where it's commonly, understood to have fireworks, I have no problem with. But to have anything outside that, it's a real simple no.
Yeah, and that's what happened is that we were challenged here recently. Permit requests had come in the most recent past, let's say the last 6 to 9 months, and they were denied. We're like, we don't allow it. It's prohibited. They went away. This one challenged that. Hey, it's been done before. City used to allow it, and that's where once we read the ordinance, it's pretty clear that it's not allowed.
Yeah, it is not allowed.
And so that's
But
over here.
It was also something that said that it was the last time that the country club was going to allow, I think, that kind of display.
Well, let's see.
It kind of like shrinked it in a way.
Yeah, I can't think of a constitutionally protected right to display fireworks. Can you? I don't think that's.
Well, they're prohibited in the city.
Well, yeah. I mean, what I'm saying, someone tries to make the argument, well, I have a constitutionally protected right to ignite and display fireworks. I don't think it's going to be found. I mean, that's the type of regulation that the city can regulate through ordinances, is what I'm getting at. But, I mean, we have to follow what the ordinance states. We can't just start making exceptions. What Commissioner Aguirre was making or alluding to is that then that's where, then what's the point? Get rid of it.
We're perfectly fine following the ordinance as it is. If those are the
Well, my addition is raise the fee to $2,000. That's my suggestion.
We'll bring some suggestions back.
It's a little arbitrary.
Couple of suggestions back.
Problem with that,
It's a little arbitrary. A little excessive?
Maybe we'll put a little science to the dollar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Last one is discussion on raised median cost. This is an item that we've brought to you before. You actually approved us adding some landscaping to the median. However, since then, we've been told that price is a little higher, and in my opinion, substantially higher, and so it's back for your consideration.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission. This is an item, as Roy mentioned, that we have brought before you in January of 2022. The City Commission chose to contribute the difference in volume for a median with pavers and landscaping. TxDOT had proposed a median just with concrete for the section of Ware Road from 107 to 103. At that time, City Commission agreed to contribute $1,069,032 for that additional landscaping and pavers. I have a slide before you of what was presented previously, so you can see as I explain the item for you. We're seeking to enter into an advanced funding agreement with TxDOT. At the time, they update their cost estimates for the project, and then we're required to contribute those funds. Since the time of us coming before you and the time of this advanced funding agreement, the project just for the landscaping addition for the pavers and landscaping has increased from $1,069,032 to $1,956,204. The project has increased an additional $887,717 with 87 cents. At this time, we bring the project back to you because we wrote TxDOT a letter. We asked them, this cost went up. We cannot contribute the full amount right now. Can we contribute the partial amount and then seek additional funding from commission? We don't want your check at this time. Go seek the full funding, and then you can contribute that check to us. Before we proceed, we wanted to make sure we saw this as a significant cost to the project and see if y'all are still interested in the project. If so, what we would do is we would go through budget in the fiscal year 23-24 and ask for the additional funds through budget to continue with the project. If you decide not to, what we would do is advise TxDOT that we would not like to move forward with the pavers and landscaping, and they would go back to the original concrete median that they have proposed for that.
Do you have a look of the concrete median that they're proposing?
No, but it would be something if you look at. I had it on the original slide. I didn't bring it.
On 10th, North 10th.
North 10th, there is some small landscaping, probably similar to what we have on McCall. There is a little bit of landscaping on McCall, but there is a lot of concrete on the McCall section from Business 83. It would look like just solid concrete, like a sidewalk.
Like a sidewalk.
How wide
Is
would
that the
it be?
width? Yeah.
Yeah, the width.
They propose them, it's about 14 feet.
Okay, so it'd be 14 feet of concrete.
Concrete in certain sections, that would be about 3 feet. When
Yeah,
they have
when it
left turn
goes-
bays, it'll narrow down to about a 3-foot nose.
This is a participation agreement, right, with TxDOT or MOU? Did we ever lock into the pricing at the time that it was executed with them, or never? Okay.
Now, we sent them a letter, and we said that, they're like, I mean, come on, guys, I mean, if this project doesn't happen, you're gonna come back to us a year from now and do it again.
Yeah, right.
And they basically said, we don't have the funding for it, so.
So is the concrete gonna look like that? I mean, is
Pavers.
the landscaping gonna be included in the middle with just concrete instead of pavers? Is that?
That would be the similar style of what they're proposing at this time.
Okay, so we would still have landscaping, but instead
No,
of pavers?
no.
Only
If
concrete?
it's concrete, it's all concrete.
Yeah,
Now-
so on the edge right here of the paver is concrete, that's what holds the pavers, in place. The whole thing would be concrete.
Just one 14-foot sidewalk.
Zero landscaping.
The landscaping in perpetuity will be maintained by the city or by TxDOT?
By the city.
That's currently what we do for Ware Road, up to,
I mean,
And
guess
did we
outside-
participate in that one too?
yes, we did participate, I think it was about $1 million.
Is there a way where maybe at the intersections, we can put pavers, maybe for 100 feet, just kind of decorative?
like
And then leave
crosswalks
the-
or something?
Yeah, kind of like that. And then you don't do any, it's all concrete for the next half a mile, and then maybe the next half a mile, you put a small area of pavers, maybe around the area with the
Not a bad,
landscaping.
it's not a bad idea.
But JJ, there's also too a stamped.
Well, that's where you can do a stamp.
You can do a stamp.
Okay, or stain maybe? Is that possible?
The stain will fade real quick with the
Oh,
sun.
that's right, it will fade.
Yeah.
Those were some options we previously brought forward. Right now, I don't think TxDOT wants to reverse on their design. We have a project letting schedule. They've kind of been on a course.
Well,
Stay on those project letting schedules. So right now, the option they're proposing is either we'll go back to our original design that we have ready.
well, we do not
So
want,
it's all or nothing, because I like JJ's idea, but
Put it in the corners and then put it all concrete, maybe little places for landscaping, small areas, and then when you get to the next corner, you put the pavers.
be like 90% concrete
not an
still.
option.
I mean, they're willing to put 600.
When do they need the money?
yeah, and we will not delay it any
We
further.
probably, this will not or their letting schedule right now is 2026.
I
They're
know.
trying to advance that, but, so there is time to work that into the schedule. We were trying to get this funded for 23, 24. What TxDOT has said is, when you're ready, come forward. This project could still escalate, so we're responsible for any overruns on those items.
Have we paid the $1,069,000? Would we have been locked in, or they still would have come back and said?
They'll still come back. So we're responsible for any overruns, or if it's, they readjust this escalation before the AFA, we have to pay the.
So we could be having discussion a year or two from now and be now $2.5 million.
That's correct. So when the bid comes out, if it comes in over, we're required for the overruns. Or the landscaping and pavers.
Okay, and right now it's on 2026 is what I read, and, you know, we had started 23, 24, and now it's at 26. We do not want to delay it any further. And I know we've been talking about a light over there that we're maybe to do it before 26 now, okay? And so if we were saying no, all concrete, we wouldn't even pay the $1 million
We wouldn't contribute if it was.
at all, right? Yeah.
They just do concrete.
And now it's at $1.9 million, whatever. So it's really a $2 million decision.
A lot of money.
Yeah, I think concrete's probably fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can, I guess, think about it for 2 weeks and then decide.
Put it on the agenda for action.
Well, I know, but can we,
Yeah, in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh,
we'll
okay.
put it on the
And can you
agenda.
bring that?
What I'll do in the meantime is I will relay that question about if we can look at partial landscaping. Maybe they'll
Yeah.
entertain that within the 2 weeks when we make the agenda item. I could get some of the questions you had vetted out with TechDOT, and then we'll come with a recommendation.
Okay. And give us the comparisons of or what it,
The looks?
yeah, what it would look like.
Okay. We have that ready so that when we come back on the agenda item, we'll have that presented for you.
That's it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
Something in executive session?
Okay. Do we have time to go to executive session?
10 minutes.
We have one public comment, so
Oh, you have a couple public comment?
Yeah, we don't have time.
we have one. So we'll conclude the workshop for today. And do we have Mr. Ernesto Los?
This concludes the workshop of the McAllen City Commission. Workshops are held every second and fourth Monday of the month, convening at 4 p.m. at the McAllen City Commission chamber on the 3rd floor at McAllen City Hall.
And identify the item about which the individual wishes to speak. After the designated time for public comment and agenda comment concludes, the City Commission may resume deliberations without further opportunity for public comments at that meeting. The City of McAllen encourages all citizens to provide their input in creating a better community and government for all.